Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Everything Strong with Dr. Michael G. Daniels. This is your host, CB Baker. We are back once again, Dr. Daniels, and we're following up on our previous episode where we talked about Satan himself, Lucifer, and the fallen angels and everything. And, you know, we was having a side conversation, and I was telling you that through my process of going through seminary and everything, I found out that I was in the game with no protection. It didn't have a helmet on, didn't have shoulder pads, it had just like going out in the field and wondering why I'm getting beat up so bad. And then, you know, you pointed me to wearing the full armor of God, and then that's when everything kind of like, I get it now. I need to walk out the house with this. Even though we've heard people say it, Dr. Daniels, but we want to tell people today and talk to people today about what that actually is.
Sure, absolutely. And your point is so well taken. And I think Paul, when in his letter to the Ephesians, his concluding point to them is, I've outlined to you all the issues that you're going to face. I won't say all, but generically, these are the things you're going to come across. And he talks about relationships. He talks about marriage. He talks about how you raise your children. He talks about business, all those things. And then he says to them in this concluding chapter, finally, my brethren, that we need to be ready, right? And his point is that put on the whole armor of God, right? He says, finally, my brother, I want you to put on the whole armor of God that you can be able now to deal with those powers that come against you. And so when you think about it in that regard, he's kind of telling us that no matter how much knowledge you got, no matter how much of, all this stuff you got, if you haven't prepared ahead of time for what's going to come at you, even though I've told you it's going to come at you, if you haven't prepared for it, you will still be out there like a lamb before the slaughter. You will be a sheep surrounded by wolves, and you won't be able to protect yourself.
Yeah, and what I like about Ephesians 6, chapter 6, verses 10 through 19, is the breakdown of everything. And I like to start at verse 14. And I've highlighted, having girded your waist with the truth. Now, most people, if you're like me, what is girded? So I went to go look it up. It means to basically place around your waist like a belt.
Right.
With the truth. So let's dive into that a little bit. What does that actually mean?
Well, let me say this, just initially, right? Think about what we just said, right? So I'm going to back up a scripture or two, right? A verse or two. Look at verse 10. Verse 10 says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. So that to me is key right there. When you look at all the other stuff, that's key. Because it says, I need to be strong in the Lord in the power of his might. So that tells me I'm weak right there. So I'm weak. So everything I'm putting on is what I'm putting on based on what he gives me, right? So, and that, again, when it talks about the truth, we got to be clear.
Right.
The truth is his truth. And I guess that's the point I'm getting. That's why I'm putting it that way. Right. It's his truth that we're dealing with, not our truth. And so then that takes us to the Gospels, right? Because that means that what Paul is telling us is this, and remember who he's talking to. He's talking to a group of people who are seeing things not from a standpoint of total ignorance, but he's trying to persuade people also who have as their background what we call the Old Testament, right?
Right.
So he's saying to them, listen, you need to make sure that you have been wrapped up in the gospel. That's the truth he's referring to, wrapped up in Jesus, because his persuasiveness to them is you can't fight without his power, which is the power of God through the Holy Spirit. So the truth then is the gospel, right? That's really what he's referring to. That's the truth. And if you don't have a solid, steadfast, and grounded understanding of the gospel, it leaves you vulnerable because you will step it. I put it in sports terminology, okay? Right. For example, my wife and I was at a basketball game last night. And so we were talking and we were looking at the two teams and the forward for the team that was opposing Old Dominion. he was 6'9", okay? The guards averaged 6'5". ODU's team forwards averaged 6'5". The guards averaged 6 feet.
Right.
And so I said to her, you know what? We're in trouble. And she said to me, you're missing a simple truth. And I said, what's that? And she said, ODU has more speed. Right?
Right.
You know, see, normally what we would think of is our truth,
Right.
which is 6'9" forward,
Right.
6'5" guards. They are going to overpower these guys, and they're going to stomp them. ODU won by over 20 points. Okay.
Right.
And they came from behind to do it, because I think even they were nervous initially, and you could see it in their play. They loosened up and they came back and they won. And I think that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. I say the truth. The truth of the matter is, it wasn't how tall, it was how fast.
Right.
It was how developed you were in your game. And so if we don't have the truth of the gospel, then we will not play our hand properly.
Right.
You know, we won't play based on what's our advantage. We'll play based on the other person's advantage.
Yeah. So, and one thing or two that he talks about is all this going against the wiles of the devil. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that last previous episode, and the attacks that the devil and the fallen angels have on you as people. And you pointed me to this scripture to say that you're not fighting the people.
Right.
You're fighting the principalities. You're fighting his influence on them. So don't look at them as the person and you're taking it out on them. It's like, right. And that really, Dr. Daniels, helped me essentially forgive a lot of people that have done me wrong in my life. Because, like, you know what? What if you're like, if you're telling me this and it wasn't them and it was the devil, and you're like, this person acted out of character, why did they do X, Y, and Z? And then I'm looking at them, mad at them for, weeks or years, when it's really, it won't really them, right, per se.
Right. And that's why he says, well, our war is against wickedness in high places, against the principalities of this world. Because, for example, I think I'm a relatively intelligent person, right? I know you to be a very intelligent person. So the question then that always has helped me to understand this text that we're just referring to is, if I'm intelligent, how can a person who I view as not being as intelligent as me get under my skin?
Right.
I mean, when you think about it,
right.
Because it's like, well, I know I'm smart, and you may not agree with me, people, but I know I'm smart, right? And I'm knowing that on average, I'm thinking I'm smarter than these people.
Right.
Then why is it they're getting under my skin? How is it that they are able to do things to me to create havoc in my life? Perhaps it has to be something influencing them that is smarter than me.
Right.
And Lucifer, Satan, is smarter than me.
Right.
It is what it is. And not, he's smarter because of time. He's experienced eons of years. He's experienced eons of people and personalities. So he's experienced much more than I could ever experience. And he also has experienced me, so he knows me, right? And so that tells me something right there. If someone who is weaker than me, who is not as intelligent as me, can get under my skin, someone smarter than them is guiding them.
Right.
So I shouldn't get upset with the person being guided. I should be upset with the person doing the guiding.
Right.
And that's Lucifer. And that's what's helped me, as you just said, to say, well, okay, you know what? Let me recognize who I'm fighting. Because if I keep fighting that individual, I'm still losing the war because I'm fighting the wrong foe.
Right.
And I'm getting tired and I'm getting frustrated because I keep fighting the wrong foe. And I think a lot of people do that same thing. And that's why they just give up, get exhausted, and lose hope.
Yeah. So now after girding your waist with the truth and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. Mm-hmm. So now I went and looked up the word righteousness. Righteousness, mm-hmm. the quality of being morally right and justifiable. Mm-hmm. So if I'm putting on that breastplate, explain that to everybody else. Like, what's that mean? I got my belt on the truth, mm-hmm. and now I'm putting on my breastplate of righteousness. What is that?
So and we know what the breastplate is, right? The breastplate was that part of armor that was to protect the vital organs, right? Now, if I know the truth of the gospel, right, then Paul says the next thing I need to be looking at is righteousness. And I like to point it out or look at it where he said my righteousness should be. Protecting my heart, protecting my lungs, those vital things that give me life. So as you said, righteousness is the ability to live in a way that morally I am acceptable.
Right.
Okay, that's the Webster look at it. But what's righteousness biblically, right? Biblically, the only righteousness we have is that when we are pleasing to God, not when we are pleasing to man. In fact, that's what the Bible tells us, right? Because you can be right with man and be wrong with God.
Right.
And so, for example, look at the crucifixion of Christ, right? They decided we want Barabbas, a murderer, over Jesus, right? Well, since all of them were saying, yes, crucify Jesus, to say that was being right with man.
Right.
But that don't mean it was right with God, even though that was part of the plan, you know what I'm saying? And we know it wasn't right. That's why Jesus had to say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Right.
So that's why I'm pointing out the righteousness that Paul talks about is being right with God. How do I become right with God? It's when I am acting in accordance with the gospel. And so that's why, Paul puts it in that point. I need to guard my vital organs by being right with God. And being right with God is following the teachings of Jesus and doing what Jesus has said I ought to do. Because it's kind of like, as parents, we both are parents. If my children are right with me, I will go through hell for them.
Right.
But if they are wrong, I will leave them out to gain experience. It's like my father said to me one time. He said, son, if you get locked up for doing what's right, I'll put my house up for bond. If you get locked up for doing something stupid, I'm not even going to come visit you.
But I like what you said just then. Let them get experience. Because a lot of times I feel like, you hear that voice and, some people say it's the inner voice or God telling you what to do or not to do something. Mm-hmm. And then you go ahead and do it. And then you realize after the fact, like, I shouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. And you're going through that grace of not having full punishment, but he's nudging you like this. I try to tell you not to do X, Y, and Z, and you did it. And this is the consequences of that. Mm-hmm. So we do that as parents as well.
Yes.
And you hit me a while ago when you told me is a lot of people don't view the relationship with God as the same as their relationship with their own kids and then their parents as well. Mm-hmm. He does us the same way. Mm-hmm. And you said it was resounding when you said it, because I remember, like, you can look back through life and you could tell certain things you wasn't supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Like, let's be real. Some mm-hmm. things you did, you wasn't supposed to do it, and you did it anyway. Mm-hmm. But if you get truth with yourself, you realize that consequence that came behind that. Right. It's like, well, that wasn't what I was expecting. Mm-hmm. But God's grace was there to make sure you ain't get the full punishment, mm-hmm. For your foolery. Yeah, yeah. and that's learning, right? And which is a good thing, and that's, I think of what my wife's obstetrician said when she went in labor with my son, Chad. She said to her, if you don't feel the pain, you won't know when to push. I think that's what God does for us, is that sometimes he allows us to feel the pain so we'll know when to push, so we'll know that, hey, listen, you know what, I can't go in this direction anymore because it's a little painful. And fortunately, as you said, fortunately for us, he never chastises us so much that it cripples us or causes us to fall away from him. But he does just enough to put enough bite into us to say, hey, listen, I need to change my direction. Yeah. And we see that a lot in the Bible, where he's hardened people's hearts around certain people so he can get them to move a certain direction.
Absolutely.
So the next part in verse 15 is having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace.
Mm-hmm. Key.
Now, for people that don't know, shodding your feet is putting shoes on.
Mm-hmm.
So I made sure I read all this up before I came to talk to you, Dr. Daniels. So now, what exactly is putting shoes on with the preparation of the gospel of peace?
And this probably for most of us is the most difficult one to put into practice. Okay, peace as a concept is simple. Peace as practice is hard, because peace is putting up with folk. Right. Peace is forgiving folk. Mm-hmm. Right. And note he said start with the preparation, meaning what? Get ready. The only way I can get ready for peace is to recognize chaos is coming. Right. Mm-hmm. So I can prepare myself ahead of time for that chaos is soon to hit me. Now, reason why I say it's so difficult is because I can't be at peace with people unless I can forgive people, right? And Jesus put it this way. The question was asked by one of his apostles, how many times should we forgive people, right? And Jesus says, 70 times 7 in a day, right? Wow, 70 times 7. That's 490 times a day. If you do wrong for me, I should forgive you. And Jesus saying we do that so we can maintain peace with them. And Paul says then I have to put that on ahead of time. So I have to already be in a position emotionally, mentally, and intellectually to say, hey, listen, if you lie to me, I have forgiven you before you lied.
You even start right.
You know, and before you lied, I've already forgiven you. Right. If you steal from me, I'm reconciling before you do it. You know, that's how my mindset has to be. Because if my mindset isn't that way ahead of time, when you do it, it's going to take me time to get to that place.
Right.
Right. So if I wait till you lie to me to say I'm going to forgive you, I have thought about it for a while. We done went overnight before. Right. But if I'm ahead of time saying it, ahead of time agreeing with that, I've already shod or put on that kind of persona. Then even before you lie, I act like you didn't even say anything to me. Yeah. I keep right on talking to you. And I have to tell you, personal experience myself is that's what I have had to do. And if, people at Enoch who attend Bible study a lot, if you say this to them, they'll say, yeah, you're right. And I would tell them, folk are just folk. Mm-hmm. Folk are just going to be folk. They understand what that means now. That means stop expecting people to not do stupid stuff.
Right.
Expect them to do stupid stuff, but already have in your mind that it's not personal. So when people lie to me now, they don't even know that I know they're lying, because I keep talking like I didn't know you lied.
Right.
I keep right on going, which means I have already forgiven you for the lie while you're talking to me.
Right.
Because I realized that you ain't gonna stop lying anyway. Even if I were to say, why are you lying to me?
Right.
You might apologize for that one, but then you're going to lie again. And then you're going to lie about why you lied to me. Right. Then I'm going to be madder. Right. Because you first try to
it's going to snowball.
Right. So, I'm saying in practice, that's what that means. Is it easy? No.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
But you make a good point, which is why even really bring it up? Because all it's going to do is cause me more strife. Mm-hmm. Because you're going to keep lying. It's going to put me in a bad mood. If I just go ahead and say, you know what, I already know you lied. I forgive you already, and move on. Yeah, and act like they ain't lied to you and keep on going. And because and I know people do it all the time. And I often say to myself, if you think I'm intelligent, why are you talking to me like I'm a fool? Yeah. But I understand that because people always think they can get over. But that's life. So why should I be surprised? Yeah. Well, my son was 3-year-old, he lied to me. If a 3-year-old think he got more sense than a grown man, right? My grandson, when he was about 7, 8 years old, lied to me. I'm thinking, to myself, you really think you can outsmart me? But that's what they do. So yeah. Well, and it's another good point is like when you're in the car and a person cuts you off. Mm-hmm. If you're already in that state of peace, right, it doesn't even affect you. Mm-hmm. But if you're not in that state of peace and prepared beforehand. The person cut you off. Now you mad for the next 15 minutes, and then you don't even know if the person even saw you. Let's say they didn't check the blind spot. They ain't see you there. You know, they ain't even thinking about you, but you in your car steaming, and then taking that energy to the next destination, either whether it be home, whether it be work, or you trying to go out on the date, or trying to do something fun, but now you in this negative space because you did not shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace.
Yeah, ain't that kicker?
Right.
And like you said, whether they meant it or not, we all have meant to cut somebody off.
Yeah, right.
Because I need to get through the tunnel.
Right.
And I'm going down the lane where there ain't no traffic at. But in order for me to merge back in, I got to cut somebody off.
I got to cut somebody off.
But that don't mean I'm not being malicious towards you.
Right.
I'm just trying to get through that tunnel and get where I'm going so I'll be on time. And that's, again, that's what I'm saying, folk will be folk. I have to start to recognize that it's not personal when you cut me off.
Right.
You ain't trying to run me in the ditch. You're just trying to get in front of me to get where you're going because you're tired of being in this long line of traffic. It's just that simple. But again, as you said, I got to be ready for that ahead of time. Because if I am not ready for it ahead of time, it's going to be hell up in there.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to get back in front of you. I'm going to slow down. And we're going to play all these games.
Right. Right. Which leads, we've seen that on the news where that leads to something completely different. And and the way the nation is now, with everybody being so divided, it doesn't take much for things to really pop off in a negative direction.
Yeah.
So in verse 16, he says, above all, taking the shield of faith. So the shield of faith, and I wrote down the definition for the faith. The definition of faith is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. Now, this is the part, Dr. Daniels, for me, that, because I'm a logical thinking person, and weeks ago, he's like, CB, you're now dealing in stuff in supernatural. You ain't gonna be able to understand everything. And I just be like, I'm trying to figure out my brain, wrap my brain around some things. It's that complete trust, like walking in that dark room, like I said, the staircase, and like I know the door is going to be there. But there's sometimes with some people where they are in that dark place right now, looking for that door, and they looking around not looking, but feeling around, and don't feel nothing. But you got to have that complete trust in God.
Absolutely. And you know what? And think about why he says it, right? Because he's telling us that you take on the shield of faith so that you can quench the fiery darts of the wicked, right? Now, and as you pointed out, a shield, that's what it's designed to do, to stop the blows that come at you before it gets to even your armor. So you can kind of prevent it from even getting closer to you, right? And it specifically says what? The fiery darts of the wicked, meaning what? There are enemies out there that are doing things constantly to destroy you.
Right.
And you don't even want some of those blows, you don't want to even hit your breastplate.
Right.
Because if they hit your breastplate, even though it may not kill you, it can still hurt you.
Right.
Right. It can still bruise you. If you got your feet shod, but they might stomp it real hard, and it might not break your toe, but it'll still bruise that little toe. Right. So why then do we need that? Here's the thing. If I can put complete trust in God, right? That means that whatever you do to me will never negatively impact my mental state.
Right.
Because my belief system will always be this: what you thought for bad, God meant it for good. And that God will elevate me above that which you did to me, right? Consider this: Daniel, or the three Hebrew boys, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, right? Now, I think they are prime examples. Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, because of the wickedness of the people around them,
right,
end up getting placed in a fiery furnace. Now, everyone would think that's bad, right? But here's what those three Hebrew boys said when they were posed with the question of who you going to bow down to, the king or God.
Right.
They said, hey, whether our God will save us or not, we don't know. What we do know is our God is able to save us. That's complete trust. That's complete trust in God.
Right.
And what happened when they went in the fiery furnace? God was in there with them. They still went into the fiery furnace.
Right.
But God was in there with them because the king said, what? I put in 3, now I see 4, and the 4th one looks like the Son of God, right? The same thing with Daniel. Daniel went into the lion's den, right? And he didn't like he had to go in there, but
Right.
God protected him while he was in there. So that's complete trust. Our trust would be, God, you will stop me from going in.
Mm-hmm.
See, that ain't complete. You know what I'm saying? Our thought is that, God, you will stop me from going into the fire.
Right.
You will stop me from going into the lion's den. But their trust was, no, I'll still go in, but I still will know God is with me. And so when you look at the patriarchs of the Old Testament, those who we revere, their trust allowed them to get into bad situations, but knowing that, you know what, that they would be better because they went in. And that's why it says that protects you from the darts of the wicked, because that's what they got. They got protection.
Right.
So that what going in, the Bible says for those 3 boys, there was no smell of smoke on their clothes.
Right.
They were protected from the fiery darts of the wicked. The same thing with Daniel. Not one lion put a teeth mark on him or a claw mark, protected. And that's the key thing there. And so when you can trust God in that way, that's what happens to you.
Now, I'm going to ask a question. Do you think people are walking around today with those type of experiences, but not even realizing that they went through it?
Yes. Yes. There's some people that absolutely go through those experiences and recognize them. I'm one of them that went through that experience and recognized it. And I'll give you a quick example of it, okay? I had always said that I wanted to retire at the age of 40. That was my goal, to retire at the age of 40. Well, at the age of 40, I got promoted to what most people would consider a very nice position in the federal government.
Right.
Very nice. Well, you don't want to retire when you get to that point, position, right? And so I got a job where I am a senior manager. I am responsible for nationwide programs. Okay, I got staff under me that's in Washington D.C., that's in Seattle, Washington, that's in Kansas City, Missouri, all over. Okay, and I'm working from home most of the time. Okay, I mean, I still got to go to my office in D.C. Actually, it's in Maryland. I'm going to my office in Maryland, in Silver Spring, Maryland, once in a while. I work from home. Ideal position. I'm getting paid to work at home, not just getting paid my salary, but I was getting paid expenses. Okay, because it was considered for me to be away from my primary duty station. Okay, ideal position. But I had prayed all up to that time that God would let me retire. Okay. All of a sudden, every devil you could think of started attacking me on that job.
Yeah.
Every devil. I ended up taking the Department of Commerce to federal court. That's how bad things got. And the federal judge, I'm sitting there across from my lawyer.
Right.
And I don't recall everything that the lawyer said, but the federal judge said, wait a minute, Mr. Daniels, do me a favor. He said, answer me 3 questions. And I said, yes, sir. He said, when you look out your office window, what do you see? And I said, the Elizabeth River. He said, when you get out your car, how many steps is it to the door leading to your office? I said, I got a reserved parking space right at the front door.
Right.
He said, how many steps from that door to your office? I said, oh, probably about 15 or 20. He said, so tell me what the problem is. Okay. We keep talking. Then we go through some more stuff. My lawyer says something. I said something to in response to a question that George asked me. And my lawyer looked at me and said, why didn't you tell me this ahead of time? I don't know what I said that got your attention.
Right.
Whatever it was potent. The judge said, I'm going to give the Department of Commerce, and he called the attorney a different kind of name. I don't remember the name he called him. He said, an opportunity to rethink his position. And perhaps the two attorneys need to talk and decide what they're going to do for Mr. Daniels. Okay. Lawyer called him back up and said, hey, what you want? I said, I'm sick of these folk. I'm ready to go. He said, is that all you want? I said, no. I want some money for my time.
Right.
Okay. I've got me a brand new motorcycle. I got $25,000 and my lawyer's fees. So I didn't pay my lawyer anything.
Right.
And my lawyer's fees. And I got to retire early. Okay. Now, I went through hell to get there.
Right.
When I was going through all that hell, I did not think it was good for me. I can tell you right now, I'm sitting there fighting. Then it clicked on me. Fool, you've been asking God to let you retire and you won't leave.
Right.
He just gave you a way out. Gave you early out with bonus money and with the same retirement as if you had you keep staying there, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's that same thing. At the time, I didn't think about it as being a good thing.
Right, right.
Looking back, and after I, made the decision, I said, that's what made me change my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, fool. Why are you fighting what you asked for?
Right.
So now I know, and then I know, and then I found out, yeah, I was in the lion's den. And yes, the lion was biting.
Right.
And yes, I was going through hell. And yes, I was depressed. And yes, I felt like nobody understood, even my wife. Because she was like, well, I don't understand what the problem is. I don't understand.
Right.
I said, well, I'm tired of traveling. Because I was forced to do a lot of traveling. Well, I don't understand. I don't get it. What's wrong? What's wrong with traveling?
Right.
But everything she said was right. And I'm just saying that, So yes, I was in that position.
Now, let me ask this question: when you were, what was the church attendance and role when you was working for the federal government, and at the time you quit?
At that time, the average attendance. Well, we had just moved from the building that we used to be into the building we're in now. As we were transitioning, actually, when all the hell started breaking loose, is when we were transitioning. It was at the moment we decided that we were going to build a new building. That's when the hell started breaking loose. That's when it just started becoming unbearable. I realize now the Lord was just telling me, "Hey, fool, I need you to get over here so you can make some things happen."
Right.
Our average attendance at when everything started, really going south for me for the federal government was about 110 people a Sunday. Okay, but I was feeling great about that because the church was full.
Right.
It was a small church. Well, of course, pre-pandemic, our average attendance was around 1,000, a Sunday.
Right.
Not that you can gauge success by the number of people, because I don't think that's fair either.
Right.
Because you can have 1,000 devils in the church. In fact, a good friend of mine said to me, well, I'll take that back. A friend of mine, I won't say good friend because I really don't know him that well. He's a good guy. I just didn't know him that well. But we were friends. He said to me, he's a pastor. He said, Jesus had 12 apostles, and one was influenced by the devil. He said, so for every 12 members you got, one of them is going to be influenced by the devil.
Hey,
so he said to me, "You lucky you only got 100." He said, "Because you probably only have about 8 devils in your congregation." He said, "I got 500 divided by 12. That's how many demons I got." Right. So, but anyway, so numbers aren't always, the big determinant, but the program that we have been able to run since I became a full-time pastor, right, is night and day.
Right.
Obviously, what the Lord was pushing me to do was where I needed to go, just like with the three Hebrew boys and through Daniel. It was through that trial and tribulation that we now see them as the people that they were. If Daniel had not been in the lion's den, we wouldn't be talking about him so much.
No, we would not.
If Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego had not been in the fiery furnace, you wouldn't know their names.
Right. Right. All right. So the next piece is verse 17. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God.
So here we have one protection piece, because we're still on the protection piece. And then we have one offensive weapon, which is, crucial, right? The helmet of salvation, right? Because the helmet protects the most important part of your body, right? Protects your brain. Someone knocks your brain out, they have knocked you out. So here Paul says the helmet of salvation, saying that's what protects us. The fact that we are saved by Christ, that's the thing that gives us the assurance that we belong to God. And so if we don't have salvation, we have nothing when you think about it. Because if you ain't saved, it's over with. Right. You will not extend to heaven. The lake of fire is going to be your final home. And so that really is the most important and the most valuable thing that you have going for you is your salvation. And the sword, the sword of the Spirit, which he tells us what that is, right? He said it is the word of God.
Right.
So Paul's point is that you don't have to always be on defense, that you can take the offensive to get things done in your life. And the thing that you ought to use to get those things done is not your own wisdom, but God's wisdom. And where do we find God's wisdom? In the word of God. Right? Because if we follow God's wisdom, we will never fail. Simple concept is this, is for financial integrity, for example. Most people are afraid to follow the Bible for financial integrity. Why? I don't know, but they are.
Right.
People will say, I can't afford to do it. Well, you're broke now. What you mean you can't afford to do it? You're already broke. What you're doing ain't working, right?
Right.
Okay, here's what I'm saying. The Bible clearly teaches us, right, that financial integrity can be found by living off 80% of your income, right? That's what Joseph, acknowledged in Genesis, 80% of your income. So what Joseph tells us is that one should never obtain expenses that causes you to live beyond 80% of your income. Now, 10% go to tithes, right? And 10% go to future issues that may come up.
Right.
And that's what Joseph said, that we need to save that for, he says, because there's going to be some droughts. And that way, when the droughts come, you will already be prepared. Now, and I know that most people don't live off of 80% of their income.
Right.
They don't. Most people live off 95% of their income.
Right.
And they may invest 5%. Some of them don't invest anything. Right. But think about the simplicity of that. If I'm living off 80% of my income and I'm saving 10%, in no time I have saved up a year's salary.
Right.
Which is a big chunk of change. Right. That's the sword. See, that's being offensive.
Right.
Living off that word. Finding a good wife, right? That's offensive if I'm finding a wife that has those characteristics that the Bible talk about. Mm-hmm. But that ain't how most of us find wives. Mm-hmm. We don't find wives based on the Bible. We find wives based on lust, right? Yeah. What the eyes admire, the heart will desire, right? Well, that ain't what the Bible tells us to do. It says what? Find a virtuous woman, right? And that's what I'm saying. Same thing about raising your kids, right? The Bible says to fathers, don't provoke your children to wrath, right? Which is in Ephesians as well, right? But think about how many fathers don't just talk to their children to explain to them why I want you to do it this way. And how many people say this, just do what I told you to do.
Right.
Which is provoking the child to wrath, because the child will like, well, who are you? Just because you did, I should be able to do what I want to do. But if you explain to the child, I love you, and the reason why I'm telling you this is because I'm looking out for your future. You may not appreciate it now, but I'm looking out for your future. And even simple things like with my children, for example. I'm saying I was not a perfect father by no stretch of the imagination, but I would tell them ahead of time, if you lie to me, this is your punishment.
Right.
If you do this, this is your punishment. They knew ahead of time what the punishment was going to be. So therefore, you could make an informed decision.
Right.
And your informed decision might be, hey, I'm staying out late tonight. But you knew what the consequence was going to be.
Right.
So I bet if you were to ask my son, were you ever upset with any of your father's punishments? He would say, no, because I knew what he was going to do.
Right.
And I just said to myself, you know what? I sleep in my car all night tonight because I'm staying out.
Right.
That was it. So that's what I'm saying. If we use that sword properly, if we use that word properly, we can stay on the offense most of the time. And that's what Paul is telling us. We have a choice. You can live a defensive life or you can live an offensive life. The only way you can live an offensive life is if you use the word of God as your guide and for direction.
Yeah. And one thing, too, is even though you have on the full armor and you're walking around and the devil and his demons shooting the fiery darts at you all day long, you're going to get tired.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to go on offense. If you can't just sit there and if you think about boxing, if you go in the corner and cover up, after a while you're going to fall because the guys are going to just keep beating you on your arms, beating you in the body until you just give up. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to fight back.
Right. You will see your salvation as a pitiful existence if you're always taking blows and never progressing.
Right.
And no one, I think no one wants that. I say I think because I don't know everybody's position.
Right.
But I know for me, salvation should not be sad. Salvation should be happy. Living a Christian life should not be sad. It should be a happy existence. And I think that's why a lot of Christians walk around miserable because they don't use the word. They read the word. Mm-hmm. They listen to the word, but they don't use the word. And if you use the word, you'll enjoy life. The scripture says the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and they that dwell upon. God said he put everything down here for our enjoyment, but we don't look at it that way. There's so many Christians that think about the world as the devil's playground. And I'm not saying it's not the devil's playground, but God created it and put man down here.
Right.
So even though the devil may be playing in the playground, it don't mean I can't get on the swing set.
Right.
Don't mean I can't still play softball in the playground. Don't mean I can't still enjoy the fact that I'm in the playground.
Right.
And that's what I think people miss sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people miss the point. It's the very good point that you're making is we're here for a reason. Mm-hmm. There's nice cars out there for a reason. Las Vegas exists for a reason. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go out there and blow your whole check in Las Vegas.
Right.
You don't have to do certain things that's available for you to do in Las Vegas.
You can go save and come back saved.
Come back saved.
You ain't got to be a heathen while you're out there.
Right. Even though a lot of people do, but I'm gonna tell y'all right now, with social media, what happens in Vegas is leaving Vegas.
Right. It ain't gonna stay in Vegas. It's gonna be on Facebook.
It's gonna be on Facebook. It's gonna be on Instagram. It's gonna be on something. Mm-hmm. All right. So Dr. Daniels, in verse 18, he says, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints. Explain to everybody what that actually means.
Sure. The two things he says that I think merit our close attention. One is praying in the Spirit. People oftentimes say, how do I know if the answer I'm getting is from God, from Satan, or from myself? That's because they're not praying in the Spirit, right? When one is praying in the Spirit, the deal is this. It's the same way you know if you're talking to me, right? If you dial my number, right, mm-hmm. you know it means it's answering the phone. If you dial a number, you don't know who's answering the phone, right? And that's what praying in the Spirit does for me. It guarantees me that I am hooking up with the Spirit, right? Because Spirit knows Spirit. But what he also says is that, listen, you pray for yourself, but pray for others around you, because we shouldn't be selfish, right, in how we solicit God for assistance. Because how we do is how it will be done unto us, right? And so anytime God's people advance, it's an advancement to me as well.
Right.
Because the more people that are on the side of good, fewer people are on the side of bad. And so if we can get everybody, let's say, if we can get everybody in the city of Chesapeake saved, everybody in Norfolk and Virginia be saved, it won't matter whether you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent. You will always do what's righteous. Right. Right? So everybody will still always be taken care of. There will be no racism. There will be, none of this stuff, because all of us are righteous in the Lord.
Yeah. When you was talking this now, it reminded me of a class I took last quarter, discipleship. And my professor was like, can you imagine if you was to go out and get 2 people saved a week. And then follow back up with them, make sure they still saved the next week. And they gave us got a whole book on how to do this. And he said, if you was to do that, and each person in the class would do that, we have over 100 people, and within months, saved. And I thought about it, like, that is interesting. And I was like, why aren't we doing that? Other than a Jehovah's Witness at the gas station, I don't encounter anybody walking to me making sure I'm saved.
No, I will say this. A couple of times my wife and I were in Waterside, and there were some people out there doing just that. It was a young couple we saw one time, and I was just so thrilled with them. The young lady came up to me and she said, "Can I have 60 seconds of your time?" And I said, "Sure." And what she did was not try to get me saved. She said, I just got saved, and my pastor told me to go and tell somebody. So I just want to tell you about my conversion. I said, "Sure, go ahead." And so she told me, and it really was very brief, how she had got saved and how wonderful it is, and how he told her to do it, so she was just doing it. So then I said to her, the Holy Ghost sent you to me. And she said, "Why do you say that?" I said, "Do you know why your pastor told you to tell somebody?" She said, "No, I don't know. I just did what he said." I said, "That's why the Holy Ghost sent you to me, because I'm a pastor." And so I did. Of course, then I explained it to her.
Right.
I said, it's a very simple concept. The more you tell people what you are, the more you will become what you told them.
Right.
And the less you tell them, the less you will become it. Right. And that's, of course, that's biblical. Right. So, but you're right. What if everybody did that? What if every evangelist, if every minister said to themselves, because the Bible says what? Go ye therefore, right? That's the Great Commission. Go ye therefore, teach all nations. Paul's saying what? Pray for the saints, pray. And he's talking about people who are already saved, obviously.
Right.
But even with that, what if all of the ministers, right, made a conscious effort to say, we're going to pray for all the saints every day? Not just my problems, but I'm praying for all the saints every day. Then what if every minister decided, I want to get one unchurched person churched? There are people who have accepted Christ who are unchurched because they have become disillusioned by people in the church.
Right.
And what if every minister decided, you know what, I'm going to lock in on one person a month and pull them back in? My mother, God rest her soul, but that's not a good statement to say. My mother, whom I love dearly, said this to me when I first became the pastor. She said, your primary focus ought to be getting the lost sheep of Israel to come back to Jerusalem. She said, when you do that, then go out. She said, charity begins at home and then spreads abroad. What she was telling me was, there's so many people who used to be members of this church that are no longer members. The question is, are they at another church or are they in the street? If they're in the street, go get them first. Show them the love that Enoch has. Once you get them stabilized, then reach out and get others, because charity begins at home and then spreads abroad. And so that's what Paul is telling us, right? Is that why are we not taking care of our own? Why are we not praying for our own? Why are we not making sure the saints that are within our purview are not taken care of? And that's an unfortunate thing, because, if every person who's called to the ministry would do that and not worry about being in the pulpit preaching, it would change the whole dynamic of ministry.
Yeah. And then another thing, too, is a lot of people feel like ministers got to understand and got their life together, so to speak, and don't really check on them. They're looking for the ministers to check on them versus the other way around. But the ministers need to be checked on as well.
Everyone needs to be checked on. Everyone needs to be prayed. But I can tell you this, if you check on other folk rather than checking on yourself, God will take care of you. Right? I'm saying it to say this. The more I tell you I'm saved, the more I act saved. The more I tell you I have faith, the more faith I act on. The more I act on faith, the more God will do just what the Bible says.
Right.
See, if you're not teaching faith, you don't act faithful. But when you're telling other people who you are and what you are, you take on that persona.
Right.
That's why the Bible, in a sense, and I'm paraphrasing, act as if you have faith and faith will be given unto you. right?
Right.
And so it's the same thing. You a sports guy, right? How many people you think of that are wide receivers that don't psych themselves up first,
Right.
that I can outrun you,
Right.
right?
That's right.
Don't every DB say to themselves, you know what? I can do man-to-man coverage. I got this. Nobody can do man-to-man like me.
Deion Sanders is almost 60 years old. Is still out there thinking he could cover people.
Thank you. Because what? But the more you say that to yourself,
right,
the more you act to prove it to others, right? But if you don't say it to yourself, you don't try to prove it to anybody. It just becomes so. But the more you believe it, the more it becomes a part of your character, and that's what Paul is talking about here. Just from a down to earth, practical, what am I going to put into action kind of deal? Is that the more I present myself a certain way, the more I will become what I'm presenting.
Yeah.
And that's critical, I think, to what Jesus said to the apostles, when he told them to go, go ye therefore. He didn't tell them, go ye therefore and get perfect.
Right.
Matter of fact, he said this to them: if they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you.
Right.
Right. But he said to them, that's why I'm leaving you the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, right? That he may assist you along the way. Okay, and I'm saying that to say this, is that as a pastor, do I get downtrodden at times? Of course, because you're a human being. But the thing is this, if I rely on other folk to lift me up, I'm going to be in trouble. I just am. You know?
And I tell my wife all the time, I was like, after seeing behind the scenes, of what the things that you are doing day in and day out, it's like, even if I got a question, if I'm in school, I was like, hey, you better call Dr. Dale. Because if he watching TV and chilling, he need that 30, 45 minutes on that TV show just to zone out, So is there anything else you'd like to bring up before we close out?
I think we just covered a lot, and I think the way, we covered a lot, and it probably will open some more doors to some more conversation, because people need to understand, how I won't say play the game, but how to function in life ahead of time, so that when they face issues, that the victory has already been won. And I think that's what this chapter is about, is how to have victory before you face the obstacle.
Right.
So that going through, you will know you will be better coming out.
Yeah. Thank y'all so much for listening and watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. This is your host, CB Baker. Till next time.